What's going on, everybody? Greg here, and let's mutate our way into the review of 2000's X-Men. X-Men was directed by Bryan Singer, and it stars Hugh Jackman as Wolverine or Logan, Patrick Stewart as Professor X or Charles, Ian McKellen as Magneto or Eric, Famke Janssen as Jean Grey, James Marsden as Cyclops or Scott, Halle Berry as Aurora or Storm, Anna Paquin as Rogue, and Rebecca Romijn as Mystique. This was one of those movies that came out right when I was a 10-year-old, came out in 2000, and they hadn't had many superhero type movies before besides Batman and Superman. And so I didn't really know what I had to go into this movie. All I knew was that I was a fan of the 90s cartoon X-Men, and I really had a huge love for Wolverine and Cyclops. So I was excited to go see it as a 10-year-old. And the plot of X-Men goes a little something like this. Two mutants, Rogue and Wolverine, they end up meeting in the beginning of the movie. Rogue is on the run, and Wolverine is placed as a stage fighter, like a cage fighter, where that's how he makes his living. And they get in an accident when they get ambushed by Sabretooth, but they get saved by Cyclops and Storm. So Logan wakes up, and he's getting this injection put into him to get his blood drawn so they can find out what kind of guy Logan is, and he wakes up and he freaks out on Jean Grey, and he starts running through this place which looks like a college or some sort of school. Come to find out, this is the academy for the young and gifted people. It's Professor X's school for the gifted, for mutants. So Wolverine gets persuaded to stay, learn, try and control his rage, and maybe find out where he came from and some of his memories, and they get persuaded to stay at the school and eventually become X-Men. I wanted to do this review on X-Men because of the fact that Logan just came out and I just saw it and I absolutely loved it. If you haven't seen my review for Logan yet, it's full of spoilers and it's the video, but I think about 2 below this one. So please go check that out if you haven't. But Jackman, man, Hugh Jacked Man. He plays Logan. He's an old broken down soul, and he is just an amazing character in this movie. I really love how he ended up having the chops right here. And he also had the hair that spiked up in the back. I love that. I love that they stayed true to what he looked like in the comics and in the TV show. I mean, not to the extent where his hair is out to here, but, you know, they kind of tried to keep it realistic looking. And I thought his performance was amazing. It's quite funny that if you go from 2017 and you go back and watch this from 17 years ago, he is like not shredded, he's not ripped, he's just a little bit muscular, and he looks way different than he did in 2013's The Wolverine. But overall, I think they picked a perfect person to play Wolverine back in 2000. I love that character choice. And I also want to talk about Patrick Stewart and Ian McKellen. They play basically the arch villain and the arch protagonist. Professor X, Magneto. I don't think they could have cast two perfect more people to be those two characters. I really love what they're doing with the younger Professor X and Charles in like First Class and Days of Future Past and all that. But I think back in 2000, these two people were the perfect choice. Patrick Stewart looks exactly like Xavier, and Magneto played the perfect villain. Even though he's old, he's still menacing. Now let's talk about Rogue. In the beginning of the movie, she's in her bedroom with her boyfriend, kind of flirting back and forth. They end up looking at each other with those cute little eyes and getting all smoochy-goochie. And while they're kissing, all of a sudden this kid, like, he turns veiny and he gets like a seizure or something. And she's like, oh my God, what did I do? Come to find out, she realizes she can't touch people because, you know, we all know Rogue's powers. You touch people and she basically sucks the life out of you, tries to absorb your powers. And if you're not a mutant, then she's absorbing your life. I thought she was really good. That was the first time I've ever seen Anna Paquin, besides that movie with the ducks. Who knows what that was called? I forgot. But she was really good. I also want to talk about those other 3 X-Men, Cyclops, Storm, and Jean Grey. James Marsden as Cyclops. He was good. He was kind of a dick. He was kind of like a pompous little jock, arrogant guy. I didn't really care for his performance as Cyclops. But I definitely liked his performance and who they chose as Cyclops more than I appreciated the little visor that they made for him. I couldn't stand the visor that they made for him. It was like black. It wasn't yellow at all. It was like, it had these big earmuffs. I couldn't stand it. And when he would like turn his blast on, he would like click this little circle thing that would shoot it out. And in the comics and in the cartoon, all he does is just, you know, and he just shoots it out. He doesn't need to mess with this thing. I mean, he goes like this, but he like doesn't have to click it or anything. So I don't know. I thought that was kind of weird that they would throw that in there. I didn't like that as much as I wanted to. But let's talk about Halle Berry as Storm. Oh my gosh. One, smoking hot. But she was like a really good Storm. Like, she didn't really have the accent that Storm in the cartoon has. She kind of did, like, in the beginning, but then it went away. I don't know. Maybe she couldn't fully commit to it. But I still thought her performance as Storm was really, really good. Especially that part where she's talking to Logan, and he's like, "Are you sure you picked the right team?" And she goes, "At least I've chosen a team." Or I've chosen a side. I really liked her. And Jean Grey, I thought she did a really, really good job. I'm not going to talk about the third movie where she's like the evil Phoenix. Oh, don't get me started on that. But in this movie, I thought she did a really good job when she used her powers, her performance, the kind of flirtatious vibe she had with Wolverine, but still being true to Cyclops as her girlfriend or whatever. But I thought those three characters did a really bang-up job, especially as a 10-year-old Greg. Looking back on 2000, I could care less. I thought it was really good. And let's also talk about Mystique. Oh my gosh. Mystique, she was super good in this movie. Like, I love her fighting scenes, how she used her feet and all of her limbs to fight, and she was really, like, flexible, especially in that scene at the very end where she's fighting Wolverine, and she does that jump thing where she, like, turns, and she's, like, going to kick him in the face, but she's also turning from Wolverine back to Mystique, and then just crack! And then she gets on the ground and falls up, and she's like, I don't know. I thought she was really, really cool. The only gripe I had with Mystique is she didn't have any sort of clothing. I don't know where she got all these scales all over her body. I know from what I remember, she doesn't have scales. She's just blue. And I thought that was weird that they did that. You know, I guess it's to kind of hide the fact that she's naked in a way. But I think that I would have liked it better if she would have at least had that, you know, that choker with the white shirt or whatever and the white cape. I thought that would have been a good improvement, but I'm not upset with what they did with her. I really enjoyed the way that all of the characters used their powers throughout the movie. When it came to the beginning and you see Storm controlling the snow at Sabretooth, I really liked when they were in the bank and Cyclops and Storm were in there, and Sabretooth has Storm and he has her up and he goes, "Scream for me." And then her eyes get like white and all of a sudden it's crack, 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 like thunder, and like lightning comes down and hits Sabretooth and he's like, "Ah!" And then Toad is there and he's like climbing on the walls and he looks over at Scott or Cyclops and he goes, and his tongue goes, and it grabs his visor and like rips it off, and then boom, just shoots this giant laser beam through the ceiling. I love that, and it breaks, and he's like, "Oh man," I thought that was tight. But also the very end when they're in that museum, Wolverine's fighting Mystique, and Toad is fighting all the other X-Men, and Sabretooth's fighting all the other X-Men. I really, really enjoyed watching them all come together and use their powers. Even though they were in stupid black leather leotards, it looked like, I would have preferred if they actually just took the risk and gave them all their blue and yellow and white colors that they had. But, you know, you take it for what it is. At least on Wolverine's costume, he had those lines that he had on the yellow costume. I don't know if anybody's ever seen that, and if you haven't, go back and check it out. I'm not lying to you. But I really do want to talk about that one scene at the very end where Magneto, he's got Rogue and he's trying to take her powers to stay young, and he goes onto the top of the Statue of Liberty, and Sabretooth and Wolverine are fighting each other out. When I was 10, I was like, this is the coolest thing I've ever seen. For real. I've seen Power Rangers, and that's nothing compared to the fight between Sabretooth and Logan on top of the Statue of Liberty. When he's like flying on the outside of it, like fighting him, and he gets knocked out really hard, and he takes his claws, and he stabs him into the Statue of Liberty. He's like sliding around the top of one of her spikes, and he's like doing a circle, and the thing goes and breaks off, and he like lands back on and goes, and like his 3 claws come out, and he's like ready to fight him. Oh my gosh, that was like the sickest thing I've ever seen. But I had recently YouTubed that scene and I was fighting it, and that movie does not hold up in CGI at all. It is the worst thing I've seen in a very long time, CGI wise. Not good, people. So now let's get into what I would rate X-Men from 2000. I would rate this a 2.5 out of 5. And I think that's pretty fair because I'm rating it as a movie now. As if I just saw Logan, I've seen First Class, I've seen Apocalypse, I've seen Deadpool, I've seen The Avengers. They can do so much more now than they could do back then, and I'm going to have to just rate it a 2.5 out of 5 because, like I said, the CGI does not hold up in any certain way. I did not like that Statue of Liberty scene when they're fighting. The CGI is terrible, but it was the first X-Men movie we got, and I thought they did do a pretty bang-up job back then. The acting is still pretty good. I like Wolverine's performance. He is truly the best part of the movie, and I can't really say too much more about it. Just a good 2.5 out of 5. Thank you everybody for watching my review of 2000's X-Men. I hope you enjoyed it just as much as I did when I was a kid. I hope this review is nostalgic for you, and I hope you agree with some of the points that I have to say about this film. Please do me a favor, everybody. Thank you for watching. As always, go down below, comment, like, and share this video with other people. Also, if you have not subscribed to my channel yet, please go down below, subscribe to my channel, hit that little bell in the corner so that way you can get notified when I have new videos for you. Thanks again, everybody, for watching. And remember, when you go home tonight, to watch a movie, man.